Kimberly Case, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
So you're running for office. What an exciting thing. Why? I mean, what brings you to this decision? A lot of people would never make that decision because they say that in Hawaii, running for office is a blood sport, you know?
And I have to tell you, it is, but hopefully it won't be for me. I'm going to try to run a very positive campaign. And I speak very highly of my competition, at least my other Democratic competition. He's a terrific guy. I just don't agree with how he votes. So this is not a personal thing. It's not a vendetta. It's just, I think I can offer Manoa something a little different.
Well, tell me, it's Manoa. You're running for the
I'm running
House
for
of
the House of
Representatives?
Manoa in District 24.
Okay, and your competition, your Democratic competition would be Isaac Choi then.
That is correct.
He's known as a fellow who hasn't supported 221 very much. Matter of fact, he's done a lot to bring it down.
And that's one of the reasons I stepped up. I did not agree with the way he handled the situation. I think he had some very valid points in his argument, but I think that he was premature, and he didn't see 5 years or 10 years down the road what his actions were going to cause. And I think as the bricks fall or as the dominoes fall, it had a very adverse effect on our business here and our reputation worldwide, not just in America.
Well, I take it from that you're a candidate who supports the tech industry, supports investment in tech. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. One of my first courses of action, if and when I get elected, would be to go ahead and try to introduce some additional legislation to support the tech industry, as well as renewable energies and pharmaceuticals. I think we're in a really great place being in Asia Pacific, and I don't understand why we're not sucking out of the Pacific Rim. Even Washington, Seattle, Asia, Philippines, Hong Kong, China. We are so centrally located. It makes no sense to me that the only partnership that Linda Lingle went for was for tourism. And that's just ludicrous. We need to really get some people involved in the trade business and setting up some shops here that are multidimensional, multi-governmental. We need to bring in government, private, universities. There's some great universities in Asia that could be working and partnering with us right now and developing so many things from the future.
Oh, yeah, wow. Good for you. You certainly are a tech candidate. So tell me what you bring to the table. I mean, both in terms of your personal approach to things and in terms of your experience and training.
Well, I am a novice, I will have to admit it, so I'm always seeking information and guidance from people who are more knowledgeable than I am. And I think that's the difference between myself and the other candidates. I know I don't know everything, so my job is to learn as much as I can and see how I can be beneficial to the tech business. I think that with the tourism business here and the service industry here, where I read this morning the average wage is $28,000 or $29,000 a year, that is not going to help our economy. The government may like it and the unions might like it because they get to tax these hotel room rates at these astronomical amounts of money and generate all this extra income, but it's not going to help us if there's another recession. The only way to combat recession and to keep our employment up is to diversify, And to diversify, we really need to go into the futuristic types of companies, green companies, solar, generation of energy by water, by wind. Just so many areas that we are so well ready to go. But as I said, I am looking to people to communicate with me. And I've talked to Ed Case, and he will help me immediately introduce some legislation.
Any relation?
Oh, yes. He is my husband's first cousin.
Okay.
But he is helping me on my campaign, and he has promised me that when I get elected, he will go ahead and help me draft some new legislation, taking into consideration some of the thoughts that Isaac came in, as well as some of the goals, well, most of the goals of the high-tech industry, to try to get a bill that will work. And I agree with what I heard, I think, Mufi Henneman say, we do need more due diligence. And as you know, as a lawyer, and I worked in the law business for a while, due diligence is imperative. Without it, you have people taking advantage of the system. So I do agree with that whole thought that we do need to go ahead and check backgrounds and make sure that the companies that are asking fall within what the goal is of the legislation.
Yeah, this is an exciting time in the sense that we're off the platform of 221. That's pretty much
It's
over.
over.
And the next legislature, which maybe you'll be a part of, will have to come up with something
Yes.
to take the tech industry forward. And right now, I would say that very few people know exactly what that might be.
Correct.
Any thoughts?
Well, of course, we need to go ahead and do some more tax credits and things like that, which my family invested in them, but we were very selective, which I think is the problem with some of these people that they say take advantage of loopholes. We invested in a wind farm that was built on Lanai. Okay, yes, it didn't generate long-term jobs. I'm aware of that, but we are now generating electricity using the wind, and we are powering like 30,000 homes annually, which to me, that's a good investment for me with my tax dollars. They say, well, your tax dollars are being put in specific areas, they're not going into the general fund. Well, the things that I have chosen to invest in are for the general fund, are for the better of the community. And also, when you invest in these types of companies, you're doing something for the future of Hawaii as well. So it's very short-sighted to just try to kick them all out. So when I think about giving tax credits, it's not to have a bank, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody in the banking business, start a little company on the side to try to take advantage. I think that's a loophole that should be closed. It is for bringing in high-tech, in renewable energy, and other types of business like that, as well as educational companies. We also invested in a educational programming through Discovery Kids. I felt really comfortable with that as well because I was putting my money into something I felt was good for all of Hawaii, not just parts of Hawaii, and all of America, since Discovery Kids is a nationwide programming situation. So I like those types of opportunities, and I want to bring those opportunities here and have individuals be able to invest in them and get the tax credits for them.
So what kind of resonance have you got from the residents, so to speak? In other words, what kind of support have you found in Manoa and otherwise?
Well, since I just started and I've only been canvassing for about a month.
Canvassing is good.
Yeah, it's very fun, I have to tell you. Most people aren't home though, but I've canvassed about 1,000 homes so far, and I've been able to talk to about only a quarter of the people when I'm around, when I catch them. And what I understand from them is they don't really follow how my counterpart Isaac Choi votes. So my big goal is to educate them on his voting positions. The second thing I have found is that people like the idea of somebody coming in with a fresh brain and a fresh eyes, because Isaac, even though he's a terrific guy, was brought in by the party. The party selected him. Mm-hmm. So they wanted him to vote a certain way, and they pretty much wanted to guarantee that the system continues the way it always has continued. And I think I'm a little bit of more of a progressive, innovator type of person. I look at long term, I look at the bigger picture. I spent time on the mainland. I went to college at UCLA. I lived in San Francisco. I worked in those places. I worked in large law firms. I worked in the wine business. My background is much wider. I have I don't see things through these little rose-colored glasses that I think some people here do. I see things in how can we compete with the mainland, which I think is hilarious to say the mainland, but in this case it's true. We are competing with Seattle and San Francisco for those jobs. We want those jobs here. We need those jobs here. They're well-paying jobs. And when you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, you're going to get people away from government jobs, and you're going to take people away from these union jobs because they want something that's more futuristic, something with good working conditions, and better pay, better benefits. So
that's really a very interesting notion. I mean, I must say that's very creative. The notion that if you can have a better paying job, you wean people away mm-hmm. from some of those conventional jobs that don't take us anywhere. You know, being in the government bureaucracy really doesn't take us anywhere. That's not the production end. So if the production end is paying more than the bureaucracy or the chambermaid jobs mm-hmm. in Waikiki and all that, what you're doing is you're causing a migration.
Correct.
Some people don't want that, you know.
Well, we do have a bloated system here, and I don't mean to put anybody in unions down because I like unions. I really do. I sometimes think that the leadership is out of touch with the union members, but I like the idea that we have unions in Hawaii. I think they're very important. I think they're what made America America. So
And what made Hawaii Hawaii.
that is correct. So it's not that. My goal is to have people choose to leave, so we can have a more centralized government. As we go into putting everything on computer system, there's going to be less paper generated, and people are going to be needing to find other jobs because there won't be enough work to support all the people that we have. When you have 10% of our population working for the government, that to me is just too high. It shouldn't be that high. And same with unions. We have really a lot of people working in the unions positions, and that's great, but do we really need that many? Or can we better prepare them for the 21st century, 22nd century, by starting to move these jobs in areas that are more growth oriented?
Yeah, that'd be great, because if somebody's faced with, on the one hand, a union job, a low-paid job, or multiple low-paid jobs, which might add up to a cumulative low-paid job, or a government job, versus something that pays 60, 70, 80,000 right out of the box, as on the mainland, in the tech areas, it would be easy for them to leave those.
It would
jobs.
also help in the sense that you wouldn't have to carry 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. You wouldn't have to have both parents working 24/7 to make ends meet. Once you go from 3 jobs that make 50,000, and you're working 70, 80 hours a week, to one job that's working 40 hours and you're making a third more, quarter more, I think that people will just automatically just kind of want to veer in those areas.
Yeah, gee, I hope that can happen. So all 3 candidates, I saw you there at the HVCA candidates program last Wednesday. All 3 candidates talked about using more technology to run state government. But how do you do that in view of the fiscal problems? We have a serious problem.
Yeah, we do, and we're coming out of it supposedly, but I've also listened to the economists who are saying that we might go into a double dip. So I'm still very, very concerned about that. And the best way to hinge with that is to go ahead and move the economy over towards high tech, et cetera. So it's all works together. But when I hear them, they're saying, like Barack Obama, if you're an Obama person listening to him when he was running for office, we spend a little bit now, but we save later. And it's sacrifice. I'm not sure until I get to see the numbers. Someone asked me the other day, are you for high rail, for rail transit? And I said, yes, if we can afford it. But the bigger concern is, it looks like we can afford it, but how about maintenance? How are we going to pay for the maintenance? I haven't heard anything about the maintenance, nothing. And I am concerned about that. It's the same with this one. Sure, we can put the money up front, but what is the maintenance? What is the training? What does it all include? Because you have to have an all-inclusive price. You can't just say it's going to be 10 million or 10 billion or whatever, and then not include all of the other. Are we going to pay unemployment for losing people? Are we going to have job training? Do we have jobs to move these people into? So it's a bigger picture than people like to think it is. It's like I was listening to Isaac Choi, and he makes these decisions, and he makes them for today. Let's end this. Let's cut this. Let's tax this. Well, the decisions he made this last session, especially, were really fine to balance the budget. But what about 2 years or 5 years down the road? His decisions have terrible ramifications down the road.
So you're into planning, economic planning.
You have to.
Trying to build a future instead of just cut expenses in the current.
And you have to have a budget that works.
Yeah.
When you say we're going to suck money from here and here and here, but you need that money anyway, and you're closing down certain services
Like education.
Exactly, that services that people depend on, it's not going to work. You have to look at the long term. You have to set your priorities and cut from other areas that can be cut. I actually did not agree with the furlough days and with the teachers union taking furloughs at all. When I talked to people in those businesses, all of them told me, every single one, I haven't met one that disagreed with this, they would have taken a 5% pay cut. Absolutely. Instead of furlough days. They would have been happy to do it. I just did not understand why the communication broke down. It just made no sense
It's
to
so
me.
interesting that in the private sector, it didn't make the front page. Maybe the newspaper should dig a little more.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies did a 5% or more
That's correct.
pay cut, and employees were happy to take that in order to keep their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Very few companies did what the state did. The state
Exactly.
really invented something here, and it's not a good invention, I agree.
I think it was a horrible idea. It's when we talk about furloughs versus pay cuts versus across the board. The other problem that we do have is that different unions are able to negotiate different things. And I think that also should end. I think if you're going to impose a 5% pay cut on one, you really have to tell them across the board, under these economic times, this is what we're going to do. And stick with it. I really think it's a bad sign when you start giving different unions something else and then ask another union, for example, the UH faculty. They took a pay cut, but they're getting it back at the end of 3 years or whatever it was. How can you then go to teachers and ask them to do something completely different? They're thinking, well, my union should be doing something more. So you can't deal apples and oranges when you deal with these types of situations. Now, when you're negotiating for pay raises and working conditions, that's one thing. But when your state is facing a fiscal meltdown, I think that all the unions should have come together with the government and made an across-the-board decision to just take a pay cut or whatever for a year or 2 years and call it a day.
Yeah, that would be a function of leadership.
I think so.
Somebody has to come and say, "Hey, boys, let's sit at the table here and work something out for the greater good." Because ultimately,
Correct.
we had better consider the greater good, or we are going to be toast.
Well, I think that's what people forgot. I really think people got selfish, and they were always pointing, not me over there. But the reality is, we're all in this together. We're all here. We all love Hawaii. I love Hawaii. I love the people. We all love it. So if we're going to be in this together, we should be in it together in the good and in the bad. And this was a bad time, but I think we're coming out of it. It's looking positive.
I hope so. I mean, but the signals are not quite clear. As you know, we're having our program, our ThinkTech program, on August 25th. We're going to talk about that. We have a very interesting lineup of people to talk about what exactly is happening in the. Hope you come.
Thank you for inviting me.
In the economy, and what we can do
down
about
on
it.
my calendar.
In a way, it's directed at legislators and prospective legislators just like you.
I have it on my calendar.
So I mean, to me, you can think of a lot of interesting issues like leaf blowers. And other, there's a list of them. When in fact, the elephant in the room is the economy.
Well, that was what I thought was amazing, was I would get and I don't want to put anybody down, but when their chief talking point was, we passed a graffiti law, I kind of wonder, this is what you're talking about. I mean, we have such major issues going on. For example, we could talk about civil unions. That was a big issue. And education, healthcare. Graffiti is not on the top of my list right now. I have other things that I think are much more important.
But there were a lot of graffiti type of bills, and you really wonder, somebody comes to a legislator, somebody, who might look just like you next spring.
Exactly.
And says, I'd like to introduce a graffiti bill, and you're my legislator, I'm in your district, how about introducing my graffiti bill? I think the custom and practice in the legislature is, oh, sure, I'll put it in. Then you get 5,000 junk bills. So do I hear you saying that you're not going to do that even if they're constituents?
No, I'm not saying that. Wait, I'm not saying that, and I understand your point and your perspective, but things like graffiti, when I lived in Los Angeles, they passed a bill which was fabulous, and it said that graffiti could be considered artwork.
Okay.
Wait, you have to hear this out, because it was very, very interesting. In Los Angeles, graffiti artists were then told, if you like to do graffiti, we want you to paint these beautiful murals on the side of freeways.
It's actually very clever.
And so they took them out of painting their names all over the walls and gave them these huge, huge places to do beautiful murals. And they have a book about it, and it's now protected, and their names are on it, and they get the same wahoo impact, but it's not an eyesore. They're absolutely stunning. So I think part of it is the re-education, is taking something that we see as bad, taking the people who are the guilty parties and re-educating them and giving them a canvas. In that case, that's what I would have advocated for.
Yeah, that's very clever. I mean, I admire Singapore. I don't know if you've been there or
I
observed them,
haven't.
but they have very clever ideas. For example, this could play a role in Hawaii. A big problem is the land system. Okay, and a part of that is the condominium part of the land system. So all these condominiums, if it's leasehold, the lease expires, and everybody's supposed to take his building away. I don't know how they do that. And the other way is, it stays there forever, and there's no mechanism to actually have the owners renew the building, demolish and build up again. But in Singapore, there's actually a rule. And if you have X percentage of people in the building want to demolish and do it again, they can do it again. This means you perpetuate, you refresh.
So do the people in the building then become the owners of
Oh, yeah.
the land, and they pay to build the new thing?
They find financing and the government helps them, and it all works well. And so buildings don't get old. And so you have a city that has an automatic renewal process. Same thing with cars. Your car reaches 10 years and the tax goes up. Some kind of incentive, a negative incentive, tells you'd better get another car. But it's a sort of built-in, we want to have a fresh city, a city everybody can like and be
Right.
comfortable with. So
Right.
we think of things like that. So
Correct.
don't you think Hawaii could do that too?
I would agree with you. I'm not sure about the car thing, because we
People
drive
love their cars.
5,000 miles a year.
That's
Our
true,
cars
that's true,
can go
that's true.
forever.
Okay.
So, but I think on the idea of, I think we're also a younger city than Singapore, but I think there's urban blight here that could use some of that. Renewable ideas, and that's just getting the community together to work on it. That's something that I don't know if that can really. I think it has to be done by the city council. It has
Yeah, a lot of
has
that
to be
is,
the
yeah.
has to be the push on that.
It's true. So let's look at the
with-
state.
Yeah, with us behind it.
What is your vision for the state? You're going to sit there in the big square building up there with the funny pond around it?
No,
And-
I'm actually going to be out in my neighborhood canvassing.
Okay,
No,
okay. All right, good.
No, I know during sessions you're supposed to be there, but at the same time you have to be out in your community. And I'm taking the role that Ed took and that Kurt Caldwell took, which I haven't really seen yet from other candidates, but it's still early to get out there and talk to the community. And that's really what it's about. My vision is you can't do anything in 2 years or 4 years. It has to be long term. So if I can set into motion, like Movie talked about, and same with Abercrombie, and I don't want to be, and Duke as well. You set into motion things and you get everything started and pushed it along. Your goal is to educate and mentor the next generation. I think I told someone, my goal is not to be a forever legislature. My goal is not to be a government person forever. I have other things I want to do as well. But if you get in and you mentor somebody and bring them along, or 2 or 3 people, and bring them along and get them excited about them and pass the torch, you can start projects and you can have them completed over a period of time. It just takes somebody younger to get in, and not continue with these people that are in. You need new. You
Need to
new
refresh
blood.
the legislature.
You have to every
Yeah.
so often.
That is such an interesting idea. I must say, I'm impressed with that. So you get in there, you set new thoughts in motion, you maybe jiggle it a little bit, you try to get people to think differently and maybe more visionary, and then you're finished. Then you're out.
It takes a while to
Takes
do
a
all
while,
that. It
but
probably,
you don't
I do
wanna
believe
spend
in
your
term
whole-
limits. I do believe in term limits. I am one of these people who thinks, and I'm sorry, Akaka and Inouye, maybe we can change it now, but I do think that after, maybe 18 years, it's time to let someone else come in, because generations change. People change. They talk about the me generation, the we generation, the you generation. I can't even keep up with the generations. But they're like every 10 years, and you're producing different people. And if you're not keeping up with these new generations by putting in people who don't change and their thoughts are the same and they're not being influenced or mentoring, you get stagnant. And I think in some cases we are, and I see that in Washington. I really feel, and as I said, this is not against our people in Washington. I think it's the whole atmosphere of politics. Things get stagnant. Things stop moving. There's so much bickering and arguing that if you can get people to move on, you change the way that people interact, maybe more can get done. When you have the same people in there 20 years, 30 years, the bickering just continues and continues and continues. You have to change it up.
Get turf wars and all that.
You name it, it's going on.
Cooliana wars.
Not in my backyard wars.
Well, I mean, let's spend a little time. If you have some thoughts about some of my favorite subjects, I'd be interested in hearing them. For example, agriculture. You have a certain amount of contact with that. What do you think about diversified agriculture? What do you think about mom and pop farmers, just like, the old days?
Well, I actually am very supportive of that. I'm very angry that a lot of the Everplain has been turned into these homes that are on 5,000-foot lots, and there's no space to go out and play. I really think that we do need to put aside some land and save it and pass laws to keep it agriculture and to lease those lands out and to support the farmers. In America, the United States, they give farmers money to produce, and if they don't hit their certain number, the government comes in and gives them more money to produce. The state of Hawaii, which now imports, I think, something like 95% of our food that we eat.
$6 billion a year,
Yeah,
almost as much as imported oil.
It's insane. We need to grow more food here because long term, you're going to get healthier food if it's fresh. You're going to support your farmers here. We need to put in some more farms in the sense of pig farms, cow farms. That we have to diversify that as well. But the reality is there's a lot of small farmers, and I saw it on TV last night, that are struggling right now because there's no water, but we should be doing something to help them. We should be giving them water subsidies or something of that nature. Now, there's this whole other argument, because how one thing dominoes to another thing,
gotta consider
dominoes
everything,
to
yeah?
another thing. You have the whole water fight, too, of who wants the water, why do they want the water. And if you look at the culture of Hawaii, the culture was the water was to be shared, and shared evenly. And they're trying, and the latest question I had is, do you think that the law should govern how the water is diversified or distributed? Do you think it should be the farmers should have more, the people should have more? And the reality is, right now, the courts have to step in because it's getting messy. And that's really sad that we couldn't figure it out separate from the court system. But the reality is we do need to support our local farmers. We need to stop development. I was so happy that the neighbors screamed in Everplain and said, not in my hillside. Mm-hmm. It takes that. It takes the neighbors to step up and create a problem, because if developers, which I love developers too, because we need them, but I want them to build up, not out. I really would like us to go up.
Planned communities.
I want to go up. I think we need more open space, and if we're going to go up, we might as well go up.
So, one thing, you talk about the water and the farm. I've seen it written that if we had if we had continued to spend money as the plantations did on irrigation and irrigation equipment, then we would have water for everyone. We just stopped spending at a certain point in time.
To be quite honest with you, I have not heard that, and I don't know enough about that to comment.
Let me go a step further
Okay.
on it and say that a lot of this is infrastructure, and there was a piece in the paper yesterday saying that we have to spend. It's clear that we have to spend something in the neighborhood of $32 billion
Yes, I saw
catch
that.
up on various kinds of infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
money that we really don't have, and we're not going to be right until we do that. This really adds fuel to the fire, so to speak, and it's
This
going
has
to make
been going on forever. I mean, let's be honest, we have been lax for years and years and years, and all of a sudden it's caught up. I really am angry at the previous administrations going back that they didn't put the money in or put it aside and maintain the University of Hawaii's campuses, maintain the public school campuses. I can't believe they didn't have air conditioning, and some of the public schools still don't have air conditioning. It makes no sense to me how kids can go to school and learn in these types of environments. It's more. I think it's actually worse than what they're saying in the newspapers. The idea, though, to tax the wealthy to pay for this doesn't sit with me. I think the money has to be generated in a different way, and I have to give it some thought in the sense of we probably need a lot from Washington, and from the administration there, and Abercrombie might be able to help with that, but I'm not sure because I haven't heard his platform on that, on what his plans are, and I think Mufi could do the same, and so could Duke, but I think we're going to need to ask Washington for some help. I also don't think you can ask the wealthy to keep paying and paying and paying. One way to do it is to, and people have talked about this, is to close some of the smaller schools and put in more classrooms at the other schools and try to merge them together and add classrooms and try to then take the money you would have spent on the smaller schools and put them into the other schools to help pay for it. I don't think that that's a bad idea. When you talk about the size of a school isn't what makes a good school. It's the size of the classes, it's the teachers' training, it's the books, and I don't even think you need lots of computers and all of that. 40 years ago, there was no computer, and we all learned, and we all were very, very bright, and we all went to college. That could have, the teaching is the same. We're still learning the same things. It's that they want to use all these wonderful little techniques or little tools or toys to help you learn, but you don't need them to learn. What you need is a good teacher, a good classroom, good textbooks, and someone who's passionate about it. And another thing is you have to have people within the community stepping up. I know this is talk. People say, oh, you're talking. Well, I love Teach for America. I really do. I support Teach for America. But if you bring in someone from Wyoming and send them to Nanakuli, they're clueless on how to teach these kids from Nanakuli. It's a waste of their time. They shouldn't be sent there. Kids like that should be sent to areas that they can be helpful, or maybe in administration, or maybe in training or something. You have to have the kids from Nanakuli learning from teachers from Nanakuli or from YNI who get special training.
Hold on. Will you wait 1 minute, please?
What time is it?
Okay.
I have 2 more minutes. I don't have much time.
Okay, we're going to be done in 5 to 10, all right?
I had to go pick up my kids.
Okay, well, first things first. Okay, so what, you talk about passion, and certainly that is what drives people.
Yes.
I see a lot of passion in you, but could you articulate for us where your passion lies? I mean, what are you most passionate about, Kim?
I'm most of everything. If you ask me what my biggest passion is, it's my children, and giving them the life that I enjoy and that you enjoy and that most people in Hawaii enjoy. I want them to understand that we're in a very special place and that they're blessed to be here and that we are a multicultural community with so many different types of, we have the Hawaiian culture and the music and the art and the hula, and the language, which is amazing. And we also have, the Asia Pacific Rim, which has all their cultures, and the lion dances, and the Japanese culture, and Filipino culture, and now for the first time, I'm actually seeing more Native Americans here, and I'm seeing more African Americans here, which I didn't see that much of when I was growing up, but I see more of this multicultural community here, and if I can instill in them how lucky they are to be here, and how this is such a beautiful place to live, then I think I've done my job. And on top of that, if I can get them a decent education, and if I can feed them and teach them the value of $1 and make them get a job at 13, which is my goal. Their first job should be at 13.
Newspaper.
Well, no, they can't anymore. Newspaper delivery is over. So I'm trying to think of what else we can get them to do. But the point is, you have to have these kids get a job when they're young and start earning money and participate in the family and be part of a family. And so you have your little core family, but then you have your ohana, and then you have your community, and then you have your, the school comes in your church, and then it just gets bigger. And if I can teach them that they are part of this huge community, then I've done my job.
So your September 18th will determine whether you
Yes.
or Isaac Choi, come out to be the Democratic candidate for
Yes.
Manoa. Exciting. That's only 2 months away. Is it 2 months away? Yeah. Less than. It's more like
And
5 or 6 weeks away.
absentee ballots come out in, I think, 4 weeks.
So that's when things start rolling.
Yes.
So do you hope to gain the academic vote? Do you hope to gain any Republican votes?
Well, unlike Isaac, there are certain position. I have certain platform issues that I think are more encompassing than his. I do support civil unions, and I do support marriage, and I do support adoption of children by gay couples. So that is a 180 from Isaac, who is against all of those rights. I believe in the separation of church and state completely. If you look at the Constitution and the Supreme Court, I view the Constitution as a living document. Unlike some of the Supreme Court members who want to take it verbatim, I actually think it's a living and growing document and should be interpreted by the people that are experiencing the document now. That's my belief of the document. So we have the church and state issue, we have the 444 issue, which we're different on. I'm also very fiscally conservative. I do not believe in raising taxes unless absolutely necessary. And if you're going to raise my taxes, you better tell me what it's for. Because if you're going to put a $140 million tax in 2001, which was the high-tech legislation that was almost pushed through, that was going to take away my tax credits for donations to charities, donations to nonprofits, and take away my property tax credit, and it was vetoed by Linda Lingle. To me, that means we did not need that money to balance the budget. So why in the heck was that even introduced and put in that legislation? So that makes me very angry right there. So I don't believe in taxing rich people and not taxing poor people. Unlike other people, when they talked about raising the GET tax, I was thinking, I think we should raise part of it, but maybe just by a quarter or half a point. And we should not include food or medicines or anything that you need to survive. It should be on other types of goods. It should be on cars, or it should be on boats, or it should be on televisions, things that you don't need. But that's something that I think if we need money in the future, that's what we should look at. Because you have to be able to buy food. You have to be able to buy medicines and not pay an additional tax. So on that level, I see how to raise money differently, I think, than the Democratic Party does, which is wants to just tax the people that make more money. So I think trying to get the Republicans to understand, and I'm going to be blunt, in Manoa, Republicans don't win. They have never, ever, ever won. So realistically, Republicans have to decide, do they want Isaac Choi or me? And I'm hoping they're picking me. So I'm counting on them. I'm counting on them, and I'm counting on the gay community and the progressive Democrats to come out and support me. And if I can get those three groups, I can win.
You are a very fresh voice, Kimberly Case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Good luck on this race.
Thanks.
Aloha.
Now, can we talk another time just to talk?
Yeah, sure.
I would like that.